I was living and working in the United States when Red Dwarf first aired, and it wasn't until 1993 or 1994, on a return to the UK, that switching channels one night, I came in the middle of this program, clearly a science fiction program, when something happened that made me laugh, and it was something that certainly would not have happened on The Next Generation. So I left the telephone where it was, and I went on watching, and I think within a few moments, I had got what the show was, and I was laughing all the time. For me, what made it then and what continues to make the show so appealing is that it is at times so close to the television series that I recorded for 7 years, and so delightfully makes a mock of the kind of show that I was doing. I sometimes wish that we could have introduced some of that same wild, ironic humor into The Next Generation.
Hello there everyone, welcome back to a brand new Red Dwarf episode, I guess season review I suppose. Today I'm going to review Series 5, which is really cool. Series 5 of Red Dwarf aired between February and March 1992, which is really cool. It starred Chris Berry as Arnold Rimmer, Greg Charles as Dave Lister, Danny John Jules as Kat, Robert Llewellyn as Kryten, and Haiti Hayrich as Holly. Horrors and delights abound as Arnold Rimmer wins and gives everything up for the love. The crew face utter erasure from history and the ultimate test of their self-worth. Take a stroll through Rimmer's self-loathing, subconscious, physically manifested planets, and later face the extent of his cruelty and the terror of his insanity. Obviously, hand puppet accomplice on side too. Only before meeting each of their own best and worst halves, and finally having who they are ultimately thrown into question. Can the crew make it through it all with themselves intact as well? So there we go. Obviously, the first year of airing was 1992. Obviously, this is the 5th season of Red Dwarf. I've been making, obviously, Red Dwarf reviews for quite a bit now. So yes, alright. Like I said, the main cast has Greg Charles, Chris Berry, Haiti Hayrich, Danny John Jules, and Robert Llewellyn. And obviously the characters Dave Lister, Arnold Rimmer, Holly, Kat, and Kryten. So 5 characters obviously. So there we go. Alright, let's start off with the first episode, which was called Hollow Ship. The crew encounters a legendary hollow ship, a spaceship made entirely out of light and crewed by highly trained and extremely arrogant and smart holograms as well. So there we go. This was more like a Rimmer episode, and obviously the episode where Rimmer gets a spotlight as well, and it's focused on him. This is obviously the 25th episode in Red Dwarf, or I suppose in Red Dwarf in general. So there we go.
Enlightenment have arrived on the Daedalus. Confirmed initial speculation. There's absolutely nothing that is value or interest here. It's one of the old Class 2 ship-to-surface vessels, a very model in fact, that was withdrawn due to major flight design flaws. Crew 3. One series, 4,000 mechanoid, almost burnt out. Give it maybe 3 years. Nothing of salvageable value. Phyllis sapiens, bred from the domestic house cat and about half as smart. No value in future study of this species. What have we here? A human being, or a very close approximation. Chronological age, mid-20s. Physical age, 47. Grossly overweight, unnecessarily ugly. Otherwise, would recommend it for the museum. Apart from that, of no value or interest.
Listed as a Red Dwarf. We have an odd mix of complete smegpots. Brains in the anal region. Chin absent, presumed missing. Genitalia, small and inoffensive. Of no value or interest.
Thanks to Enlightenment, evidence of primitive humor. The human has knowledge of irony, satire, and imitation. With patient tuition, could maybe master simple tasks.
Listed as a Red Dwarf. Displays evidence of spoiling for a rumble. Seems unable to grasp simple threats. But careful pulling could possibly be sucking someone's lunch to a straw.
Thanks to Enlightenment, the human is under the delusion that he is somehow able to bestow physical violence to a hologram.
Listed as a Red Dwarf. The intruder seems to be blissfully unaware that we have a rather sturdy hollow whip in the munitions cabinet. Unless he wants his derriere minced like burger meat. You better be history in 2 seconds flat.
Thanks to Enlightenment, recognition complete. Transmit. With speed. Enlightenment, quickly please.
The second episode of this season of season 5 is the Inquisitor. Obviously the second episode goes as followed. The crew faces off against the Inquisitor, a self-repairing simulant who served to the end of time and has made it its mission to visit every single soul, judging each of them whether they have led a worthwhile life, deleting the ones who did not and replacing them those who never had a chance to exist. This was obviously aired on the 27th of February 1992. The third one is Terraformer. Arnold Rimmer is lost on a Psi moon, a terraforming moon that reshapes itself to mimic a person's psyche, with Rimmer's own psyche controlling the moon. The Dave Lister, obviously Kryten, and Kat have to wade through the most gruesome horror and battle an entity known as Unspeakable One in order to rescue Rimmer and escape. This was the 27th episode in general of Red Dwarf and aired on the 5th of March. Quarantine is up next. Rimmer is driven insane by a hollow virus and tortures Lister, Kryten and the cat with his new telekinetic powers and with the help of his fearsome henchman, Mr. Flibble. So there we go. It was a very funny episode, not going to lie. That aired obviously in 1992 on the 12th of March, which is obviously the 28th episode in general. Then we'll go to the penultimate episode, Demons and Angels, a triplicator, a device that makes 3 copies of everything, triplicates Red Dwarf and its crew into 3 different versions. The normal crew, a saintly version, obviously a angel version, and a cross-dressing naughty evil version, which was also very interesting to see as well. So there we go. And obviously the last episode was Back to Reality, which is obviously a great title. Just as the crew is about to die a most horrible death, the screen flashes to Game Over, and Lister, Kryten and the cat and Rimmer find that their adventures aboard the Red Dwarf were but a computer game. Or were they? So there we go. And obviously the last episode aired on the 26th of March 1992, and obviously was the 30th Red Dwarf episode in general. This season was quite alright. There were some funny things in there that I really liked, but also a few things that I didn't really like. Some jokes that didn't land for me, to be honest. But anyhow, in my opinion, the season was quite alright. It was funny to see the different science fiction elements, like obviously the holo ship and a ship entirely made out of like holograms and stuff like that. And you obviously had other holograms where Rimmer could interact with. The Inquisitor was very interesting. He also had like an Irish accent or a Scottish accent. I found that really funny and quite random.
Granted the greatest gift of all, the gift of life. All must answer to the Inquisitor.
But how do I know I'll get a fair hearing?
But yeah, sure, I mean, why not, right? The planet, obviously the Psy Moon, was a bit too much. I understand that a planet exists, but a planet doesn't exist because of someone's psyche, right? That's just something, you know, it's just science fiction, right? It's Red Dwarf shenanigans, right? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. But I was like, okay. Quarantine was like an episode which obviously was only in a few rooms, which kind of was interesting in my opinion. And obviously Rimmer gets crazy and becomes like a girl with like a penguin henchman. So there we go. Demons and Angels was also really funny. Obviously you get like a different version of the Red Dwarf crew, obviously an older and I suppose wiser version and a grumpier and naughty evil version of themselves. And yeah, I really like that because in every season they kind of interact with one another, just slight alterations to their normal crew, right? Obviously Back to Reality, the last episode, we also had like some kind of little variation on themselves. Obviously they became real persons, but obviously every single person was like a bit worse than they already were in the reality that we know them in. So there we go. Obviously, during the course of Series 5, the crew encounters 4 different versions of themselves, right, like I said. The alternate Lister and Kryten from the Inquisitors, the good and evil version of themselves from Demons and Angels, and the real versions from Back to Reality. Like I said, Back to Reality was aired as a series closer in order to keep fans guessing whether the game explanation was real or not. That's really interesting. This was the last series to feature Holly and the Red Dwarf itself until the final of Series 8. Series 7, yeah. And the last ever appearance of the female version played by Haiti Hayrage. Oh, that's interesting. Holly in male form also later vanishes from Back to Earth onward. The VHS release of Series 5 stands out in that the episode order bears no resemblance at all to the broadcast or production order. This came about thanks to both Back to Reality and Quarantine being exceptionally well received, and the BBC wishing to have both on different cassettes, right, to maximize their commercial potential. Ah yes, capitalism at its best. As a result, the first VHS tape, Byte 1, contained Back to Reality, Demons and Angels and Hollow Ship, while the second tape, Byte 2, contained Quarantine, The Inquisitor and Terraformer. Alright, that's interesting. They obviously split the best episodes. So one, a VHS cassette, had like one of the better episodes in the series, and the other one had another great episode. So there you go. Alright, this was the first and only series to be directed by Juliette May. She never understood the concept of directing the show, and so Grant Naylor directed the remaining ones. That's interesting as well. Alright, sure, fair enough. I think kind of interesting because, like I explained, this is also the last season that will feature Holly and the Red Dwarf itself. That's kind of interesting because I kind of presumed that, obviously, Red Dwarf was going to disappear for a while because they kept on flying into like in the Starbuck, right, the green vehicle. They kept on flying in that, and I was like, where are you guys? Why aren't you on the Red Dwarf? So it makes proper sense that in the next season, so in season 6, right, the Red Dwarf won't be appearing anymore. But I presume it will come back somehow, somewhere, right? So right, this was my review for season 5. I just really like watching Red Dwarf. I know that the viewership is not really there, but that's quite alright. It's just something that I really admire watching, and there's some, I think, there's some kind of thing that really attracts me to it because these British guys, they're kind of stupid, but they get into the weirdest adventures, and I'm really getting nostalgic for the first seasons as well. It's like, I've watched them all, but I was like, I'm like, maybe I should rewatch the first season because they're so much fun. But I won't, because I'll take a few maybe months, maybe few years after I, originally going to rewatch them. But yeah, like I said, season 5 was great. So there we go. It was doable. It was not the best season. I think season 1 and 2 are still one of my favorite ones, and season 3 was also quite alright. Season 4 was also great, but obviously we're still continuing our Red Dwarf adventure, and we just need to watch Red Dwarf season 6 now. I haven't started watching the first episode yet, so I'm really stoked and excited to see where that will go. Obviously, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will check you later. Goodbye.
That is a glow stick.
Come on, let's go.
Before you go, consider this. Not only do I have a deep cycle marine battery power source, which is more than capable of running our entertainment system, I also have all 61 episodes of the BBC series Red Dwarf.